Tokpila, the first of the four worlds created in the Hopi traditions. What makes Rains think that Tokpila might be under his property isn't just the mix of minerals, gems, and crystals that the ants are bringing to the surface easily, but because of the translations of the petroglyphs. The petroglyphs show running deer, antelope, and underground running water. There are also time traveler markings at other areas of Aster Ranch on huge boulders blocking cavern entrances. Rains started to find pottery all over the area when he walked his property, some of which has been dated over 1,200 years old by Northland Pioneer College. James Kunkel, director of the White Mountain Archaeological Center, and who is a purveyor of the famed Raven site, has verified in writing Rains' claim of grave robbing. Members of the American Indian movement has been brought in, specifically Mr. Vernon Foster, who has been to the area 4 times. Rains feels the area should be enclosed, protected, and turned into a national monument to the Native American Indian as a wildlife refuge area and as a sacred Hopi site for future study by geologists, archaeologists, and Native American scholars with a committee of other people interested in protecting almost 3,000 acres. The Bureau of Land Management was supposed to examine the site, but when they learned that the White Mountain News would be there to cover the story, they changed their minds and have refused to speak with us. Several of Rains' neighbors have chased away potential looters at gunpoint. Others have admitted they've heard of the looting. So tell me some of the things that have happened to you since you've moved onto your property and why you're concerned about your personal safety.
I got another letter from another gentleman that lived out back behind me at another ranch, and he overheard a conversation between one rancher and his foreman stating that they helped start the fire at my place when I was torched one night in my camper, and we've now got that notarized as an affidavit. Turned out there's been 2, plus another gunshot fire one night when me and another gentleman was living on the ranch, Buddy Rydell. There's been a lot of other hearsay going on out in the neighborhood. There's been other families out there that we're all getting together now, and we're talking and we're having private meetings about what's been going on, certain animals being killed. And it seems like the law enforcement in the area, I would say that maybe some of them believe in us, and some of them are being told to leave us alone and just let it stay clear. That's about the best I can say at this point, that we're very unhappy with what's going on, plus the prehistoric, the artifacts, and that the Hopis might be coming down after they had a meeting on the 27th of July, and they're forming a delegation to come down and look at the area and hope it gets declared a sacred site, because all the artifacts are there to prove there's a religious red city. The Hopi has never been found, Palagwapi. And there was a Hopi elder that came down before by the name of Will that had tears in his eyes after he did a tour out there, and he said, "You got it." A certain rancher asked me, another private individual asked me that was with the Air Force, if I'd been to caverns below. So there's quite a few attestations that there are some very sacred things out there, and there's some other things that need to be uncovered. And hoping that when the Hopi do come down here, that they're going to confirm some things. Plus, Cheryl Griffin, the state preservationist archaeologist of Arizona State, has been contacting me over the last couple months, and she wants me to send her some more documentations and things that it might be registered as a state register. That means it would go as being a very sacred site, and her artifacts will be there, and also get to Washington, D.C. on the archives. Till then, there's other archaeologists we're hoping to get to come out the area and look at the stuff. And in the BLM land, we're trying to get it stopped where a certain rancher cannot get the area and subdivide it and make it into subdivision and be on sacred sites and be digging up grave sites and putting homes or whatever else that might be coming out in the area, because it is a very sacred place.
And now you've told me before that the signs to get to your place are constantly being moved, or either being moved or
vandalized.
Or vandalized. And that also, tell us about the incident that happened in your trailer when that was set afire.
Just I lost quite a bit of money in there, and rifles and 4 Rottweiler puppies that were just about 4 months old, and nothing seemed to be done.
Well, the fire marshal, you said the fire marshal was found 3 spots where the fire was set?
There was another gentleman by the name of Larry Borden that came out there. He was a former NSA agent. He said this is 3 places they started it. It just seems like that the whole area, there's other areas and ranches behind us that are very heavily guarded and fenced off. And there's a lot of things that we've heard from another reporter, used to be Jim Talon, who was right for the Mighty Mountain Weekly, who's told me certain people that we will not mention that he's chased off at gunpoint. They just keep buying land out in the area so they can dig it up. Because the law here in Arizona states that on public state lands, it's a federal criminal and felonies if you get caught selling artifacts.
For those who wish to have a tour of Aster Ranch, Mr. Raines gives them to the public every Sunday after 12 noon. To get there, take Highway 60 north of Show Low until you reach Borden Ranch Road. Make the turn and travel over 5 miles to the Silver Creek Golf Course area. You'll see a stone marker with Aster Ranch written on a street corner. Just travel down the road and follow the ensuing stone markers.
There's little doubt that Ed Raines' property is archaeologically significant. One quick look, and even a novice can see the ancient petroglyphs. And in a short amount of time, we were able to scoop up pieces of ancient Indian pottery. But Ed Raines says there's a lot more that you can't see.
It's a gateway.
A gateway to a lost ancient Hopi city, which Raines says is buried deep below the rocks and boulders on his property.
When you have the emergence, the owl eyes down here usually mean taboo or of great knowledge. Whenever you have petroglyphs with the man or woman, William, the medicine men holding their hands down, means they're hiding something. Whenever most petroglyphs people see their hands are up, they have nothing to hide.
And mixed in with the boulders, Raines says are 6 signs. Signs which prove the ancient Hopi city is on his land. Signs, he says, which have been confirmed by some unnamed Hopi tribal leaders. 6 animals in the form of rocks, some easier to spot than others. There's a turtle and a lizard. Raines says there's also an eagle, a parrot, a frog, and an owl, although we had a hard time making those out.
There's portals, doorways, and the metaphysics of this property is so powerful, and the other UFO phenomenon of things flying around at nighttime out here is, all the families out here see things.
Raines says it's not uncommon to see lights, some taking off, others zigzagging across the sky.
I believe there's UFOs down below in the caverns. I've had certain resident people out here ask me if I've been in the caverns. Well, I'm not making no money, and I'm not a kook. I've got probably quite a few signatures of people and their letters stating that they're very happy to see what I'm doing, and they wish me the best.
Rich Dubeck, Eyewitness News 4, near Show Low, Arizona.
Only on Fox, many of us live in Arizona for years, never knowing the Indian legends of the land around us.
Well, tonight, Steve Filmer takes us to a place near Show Low that one man says perfectly matches the description of a mythical portal between 2 worlds.
Some people in this area would like to tell you that a state museum came in here and did this. But no state museum would come in with a backhoe and dig it and then blade it back over.
By any measure, this is a strange piece of ground.
This is wrong.
Ed Raines isn't exactly sure who made the holes in his land, but he knows exactly what they were looking for. Pots and semi-precious stones that are often found in ancient Native American burials. And the way these holes were dug leave little doubt that whoever made them quickly, took what they wanted, and left.
There's a lot of special qualities to this area, and it's a very ancient place.
Some of those qualities here on Aster Ranch, your eyes just can't miss.
The medicine lady surrounding the world. You see a turtle's leg, he's pointing straight down. The turtle's leg is stuck in the pyramid. There's other printings and handprints here. Then if you get these wet, you'll see the 4 pyramids with the 3 below it.
And for some, you have to look harder. This turtle, the head, a foot, the shell.
You'll see other lizard form heads, other turtle heads sticking out, kinda, carved.
And some really challenge you to open your mind.
You have certain lines, like someone would use as music or typing. We're considering this now to be almost braille, like coded messages that we haven't been able to read yet.
Raines says these figures match up with Hopi myths.
And these are plugs, how they plug things, and they open up cavern entrances and then replug them so no one else could get into them.
That this land should have a passageway to another world.
You can almost see it as a huge nodule of a bird.
Okay.
The beak and everything, like there's something way down below here, the city.
Raines says whether you see or believe all that he sees on Aster Ranch, this ground needs protection, the kind that only government status can provide.
Buy some tools and axes still back behind here. Basically, the state of Arizona, you can dig on your own property, but if you get caught digging on state, federal, or other lands, it's a $250,000 fine and 2 years in jail max. The second time you get caught, it's an automatic 5 years, automatic $250,000, and search and seizure of your property.
Without those kind of strong consequences, Raines is afraid the plunder will continue. Steve Filmer, Fox 10 News.
Now, Raines feels the fastest way to get protection for Aster Ranch would be for it to simply be declared a wildlife sanctuary.
Tomorrow.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Cass Mirovich.
And I'm Kevin Birnbaum.
Welcome to this week's edition of the White Mountain News. These images taken on May 4th are possibly of a rumored ancient Indian trading post that was unearthed by the property's owners in Taylor. Witnesses have told the White Mountain News that they have seen a bulldozer tear through the area, unearthing bones and artifacts, and then take what's been found off the property.
According to one witness who was on the site, another person is ready to give the names of over 12 witnesses who have seen the site dug up where bones were put in a truck of an identified property owner. The shallow graves are strewn throughout the area, which was well known to have been an ancient trading post verified by Native American artifacts not indigenous to the region. Local residents have stated they're familiar with the site and the possible illegal digging, and that members of the Taylor Town Council have been contacted and up to this time have done nothing about it. The Navajo County Sheriff's Department was called to look at these skull fragments as well as the entire site, but they chose to ignore the call and not arrive. Snowflake Taylor police did arrive and said the skull, clearly human, could be anything and that there's nothing illegal about digging up artifacts including human remains on your own property. The officer chose not to do anything about the site either. The Bureau of Land Management, the governor's office, and the local FBI were contacted on May 4th about the find, as well as various archaeologists. Another witness said roughly 3 weeks earlier when the bulldozer was brought onto their property, he went to the site, which is visible from his property, to see what was going on. He said he noticed that the dozer would be utilized for 30 to 45 minutes at a time, and people would then start looking around in the ground for items, and then the dozer would dig some more. He said he wasn't there for more than 7 to 8 minutes before he witnessed bones starting to become unearthed. He said some kids grabbed them and carried them off to pickup trucks. He said there are still bones up there now, and it's not right for someone to be digging up a burial site. After the White Mountain News took these shots, the bulldozer, seen here, started to doze over the shallow graves. The Native American Graves Protection and Recreation Act was signed into law in November 1990 by President George Bush. It protects burial sites on federal and tribal lands and creates a process for repatriating cultural items, including artifacts and human remains, to Native tribes. In addition to 38 states which have enacted reburial or repatriation laws, others which have not enacted laws specifically addressing human remains in archaeological context may use archaeological and historic preservation laws or a combination of public decency, cemeteries protection, and abuse of corpse statutes. In 1990, Arizona passed 2 laws specific grave goods on state and private lands. Under this statute, upon discovery of human remains over 50 years old, the project supervisor has 3 days to notify the Arizona State Museum. The preferred option is to leave the remains undisturbed. 6 months for study and to convene a meeting to determine disposition. Reburial is required of human remains and associated objects from state lands. Objects that are scientifically important may be retained for study for up to 1 year. For sacred or ceremonial objects, the tribe's decision will be respected. The project supervisor responsible for the discovery is obligated to pay repatriation and burial costs. A process is established for dispute resolution under which Native groups may petition for return of artifacts of importance held by state institutions. The second statute is disturbing human remains or funerary objects on lands other than state lands requires the landowner to notify the Arizona State Museum of the discovery of human remains or of the intent to disturb a known burial site. The museum will encourage the landowner to protect the site from further disturbance, but if this is not possible, the museum and landowner will attempt to reach agreement for recovery of the remains. If no agreement can be reached, the landowner must allow at least 10 days for the museum to notify the appropriate tribal groups. For remains removed from private lands, the museum has 6 months to notify Native groups and researchers. If no claims are made, the museum will rebury the remains within 1 year or store them for later repatriation. The landowner is encouraged to assist in paying for excavation and reburial of material from private lands, but is not required to do so. In these cases, the museum will pay. The law further prohibits the sale of human remains or associated grave goods. The jurisdiction covers state lands, private lands, and collections held in state institutions, with the statute of limitations not being specified. Areas covered under the Act include all human burials at least 50 years old and associated grave goods located on state or private lands and sacred objects held in state institutions. In regards to ownership for state lands, the project supervisor is responsible for remains until disposition. For remains on private lands, the museum is responsible for excavation and reburial. Anyone who violates provisions of the law is liable. Unauthorized excavation of these sites is a felony with up to 5 years in jail and fines of up to $150,000. Misdemeanor penalties include fines of $2,500 and up to 6 months in jail, with exemptions not being specified. Permits are required for excavation of archaeological, historic, and paleontological resources, including burials on state lands. Permits are issued by the director of the Arizona State Museum. The White Mountain News will continue looking into the story.